Life in the Wild West was far from comfortable, especially when it came to hygiene. Compared to modern cleanliness standards, everything was much more challenging. From a scarcity of readily available water for a rare shower to sharing a toothbrush with a crowd who used pocket knives to scrape off food remnants, personal hygiene in this geography and during this period of American history was abysmal, with practices that are highly questionable by today's standards. However, at the time, it was the norm. Imagine having to use plant roots to wash your hair or bathing with the leftover water from your parents' showers. Let's delve into the 15 crazy hygiene habits of the Wild West. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate notifications to stay up to date with our latest updates. Number 1. A shower every 7 days. Men, women, and children only took showers once a week. And if that isn't disgusting enough, they used recycled water that another household member had already used. Most men in the Wild West preferred to avoid bathing frequently, and when away from home, they only did so when they were near a river or creek, an opportunity to also wash their clothes, as long as it wasn't during the cold season. The practice of daily bathing is a product of the Enlightenment era, as before the 18th century, even the wealthiest individuals avoided showering every day. Number 2. Water for everything and everyone. Water was a precious resource in 1845, and the inhabitants of the West made the most of it. Using water for dishwashing wasn't always well received, and if they did use it for that purpose, it was the water that had been left in the basin after the entire family had showered. As you can imagine, it was far from clear. It's also known that many Western settlers drank contaminated water from ponds, a habit that led to diseases like cholera and smallpox, claiming the lives of numerous Native Americans and settlers. Number 3. Irritating fat and yucca plant soap. American settlers made rough soap from animal fat, lye, and some herbs to improve the scent. However, the result was a product that irritated the skin. According to the memoirs of cowboy and drifter Frank Clifford, who traveled the Wild West and chronicled his adventures in deep trails of the Old West, Mexican women used yucca plant roots as soapy herbs to wash their hair, leaving it soft and shiny. Women in the Wild West paid more attention to personal hygiene than men. Number 4. Embracing body odor. In those times, body odor was considered a part of life. It was believed that bathing was harmful because clean skin would open up the pores, becoming a gateway for germs and bacteria to spread diseases. So, the less frequent the showers, the healthier they believed they would be. This belief only made life in the Wild West more intolerable. The bodily odor was nauseating, especially for men who didn't bathe for days or even weeks due to their constant horseback riding. Every time cowboys entered a bar or any other establishment, they left their equally smelly horses outside, but the unpleasant smell followed them inside. Their skin could become so dirty that it caused fungal infections in the armpits, groin, buttocks, and feet. And since the habit of hand washing didn't exist, cowboys ate with the same hands they used to scratch their itches. Number 5. Rarely changing clothes. In the harsh and demanding environment of the Wild West, people, particularly men, often went for extended periods without changing their worn-out, sweat-soaked clothes. They would only wash them when they encountered a river or stream during their travels, and if water was scarce, they would continue wearing the same clothes for many more days. This lack of cleanliness made for a less than pleasant experience in the Wild West. Number 6. Odorous outhouses. The inhabitants of the Wild West would dig holes in the ground outside their homes to create wooden outhouses where they could attend to their physiological needs with some privacy. However, these holes quickly became sources of foul odors, attracting flies, mosquitoes, and even spiders. The use of these makeshift outhouses contributed to the spread of diseases, especially since medical professionals were scarce in the region during that time. Number 7. Corn cobs as toilet paper. While the Chinese had been using a form of toilet paper since the 9th century, the invention by American Joseph Gaiety in 1857 hadn't made its way to the Wild West. Instead, the people relied on grass, leaves, and yes, corn cobs to fulfill their bathroom needs. Needless to say, comfort and delicacy were not top priorities in this regard. Number 8. Shared, unwashed towels. Imagine going to a bar and instead of a disposable paper napkin, you're handed a damp towel that has been used by numerous people before you. Well, that's exactly what happened in the Wild West. Bars had a rail attached to the ceiling with 2 or 3 towels hanging from it. These towels were used by men to wipe the beer foam off their mustaches and beards. Unfortunately, these towels were rarely washed or replaced, becoming breeding grounds for germs and diseases. Number 9. Poor oral hygiene. The sparkling white teeth of Wild West characters portrayed in movies are far from accurate. According to True West magazine, most people during that time had stained and decayed teeth from chewing tobacco and drinking coffee. Dental hygiene was rudimentary, with no toothpaste or personal toothbrushes available. People simply used a knife to remove food debris stuck between their teeth. This lack of dental hygiene resulted in decaying teeth, and individuals would often visit barbers or blacksmiths, who would extract and discard rotten teeth using pliers and forceps. To alleviate the pain, patients were given a swig of whiskey. Number 10. Communal toothbrushes. While brushing teeth was not a common practice, some individuals in the Wild West attempted to maintain oral hygiene. Public establishments, similar to stagecoach stops, would provide communal toothbrushes, just like the shared towels in bars. However, this practice ended up causing more harm than good, as it led to the transmission of germs and bacteria from mouth to mouth. Number 11. Chewing tobacco to moisten the mouth. With dry heat and a lack of oral hygiene, the Wild West inhabitants had to find ways to combat dry mouths. Chewing tobacco became an unusual and addictive practice that provided comfort to those traveling through dry and dusty terrain. The tobacco was chewed slowly, and only when a good amount of saliva accumulated would it be spat out. Number 12. Spittoons everywhere. Spittoons were a common sight in barbershops, banks, and other establishments. These repulsive containers served as receptacles for the chewed tobacco and saliva. According to author Gregorio Duval Hucas in his book A Brief History of the Wild West, many saloons had a series of spittoons placed throughout the floor. Some bars even spread sawdust on the floor to help with salivation in the scorching heat. However, this practice backfired, as the spitting on sawdust turned the floor into a breeding ground for germs and bacteria. Consequently, diseases like tuberculosis and pneumonia found another means of transmission, especially among travelers who rented rooms in taverns and slept on those contaminated surfaces. Eventually, this practice was banned, and fines of up to $500 or 1 year of imprisonment, sometimes both, were imposed. Number 13. Insect-infested beds. Due to the discomfort of sleeping on the ground, Wild West inhabitants opted to make beds using hay or straw, covered with sheets. However, these surfaces were rarely changed, not even the sheets, and over time, they became infested with lice and other insects. These critters caused annoyance, bites, and the transmission of diseases. Number 14. Whiskey as a hair cleanser. Whiskey had multiple uses besides intoxication in the Wild West. It served as an analgesic before tooth extraction and as a hair cleanser for women. Ladies in the Wild West used a mixture of whiskey and castor oil to wash their hair. They would rinse it out with rainwater or a solution of borax or baking soda. In desperate times, whiskey was also used to disinfect medical instruments when no other options were available. Number 15, bandanas for skin protection. You may recall seeing children dressed as cowboys with red bandanas tied around their necks. These bandanas were not just a fashion statement. They served the purpose of protecting the skin from the harsh sun or extreme cold of winter. By covering their noses and ears with bandanas, both men and women shielded themselves from the strong, constant, dusty gusts of wind. These unique habits of hygiene, or the lack thereof, in the Wild West may seem crazy when compared to modern standards. However, the extreme climate conditions, limited access to clean water, and the vast distance from more developed societies partially explain these unhygienic customs. Did you ever imagine the Wild West to have such habits? Do you know of any other intriguing practices? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your family and friends. If you're new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe. Also, follow us on all our social media platforms listed in the description below. We'll be back soon with more curiosities from history.